Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Shekinah, aka the Purpose Therapist, and we're coming at you with another episode of the Stress Free series. Today, we're talking all about conflict and conflict resolution and ways that impacts our overall heart health and how we manage our stress. Our goals today are to try to give us some tools to help us show up differently when we're having difficult conversations, when we're a little angry or upset. It's okay to feel those feelings. Let them all, do what they need to do. But make sure that before you step into the conflict or whatever situation you're having, before you get ready to address the matter, check yourself first. So that's what we're talking about today. Super excited. Now let's get into it. So why is this conversation around heart health and conflict resolution so important? Well, let me tell you. Negative conflict can have a significant impact on your overall heart health. Research has shown that prolonged exposure to conflict and stress can increase a risk of cardiovascular disease and other related health problems. So what you want to think about is things like increases your blood pressure when you get into conflict, that flight response, that adrenaline pumping. If you're not able to manage that first step properly before you enter into a conversation, you might end up getting a more prolonged, high intensity heart rate, blood pressure, all these things as far as your physiological signs will be heightened in the midst of this conversation. So you want to make sure you're checking on that, right? The next one is it affects your heart rhythm. So when your heart is racing, it makes it pace faster, and that can sometimes cause things like arrhythmias, and it can also impact different like irregular heartbeats. Okay, so those arrhythmias and regular heartbeats are things that you want to kind of be aware of. That's why it's so important. We talked about mindfulness a couple of times, taking in those deep breaths, giving yourself breaks in between, right before you ready to have a conversation, to slow your breathing down, so that you're not bringing that type of energy to the conversation, right? Then it might also lead to some unhealthy behaviors. Typically, when people aren't able to manage conflicts correctly, it can lead to things like smoking, overeating, drinking alcohol or to excessive alcohol, and other risky behaviors that will lead to you having a prolonged impact on your heart health. So these are all things that you want to be mindful of in a long-term space. And especially lastly, I almost forgot, increasing heart disease, and puts you at risk for that. Those prolonged situations of that increased heart rate, tension, a lot of tension, and you managing those different fight or flight responses prolonged over time can impact the way your overall heart health functions. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring these things. That's why this conversation is so important. So per usual, grab your paper, a pen, be able to share this with somebody. Hit the replay button if you need to get back to these points. But we're going to talk about how we can use different tools to help us manage conflict a lot better and overall manage our heart health. So again, what we're talking about today is 7 tips to manage conflict. Manage how you show up, manage what goes on, manage how you can really look for understanding instead of like disconnect with whomever the altercation is with or whoever the conversation is with. We want to try to step away from a place feeling proud of ourselves, proud of the conversation, proud of what took place, and feeling like we understand the other party better just as much as we want to feel understood. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so the first thing we want to remember, if we don't remember anything else, is to stay calm. Always stay calm. When faced with conflict, it's essential to stay calm. Check your physiological signs, check how you're showing up, so that you're not putting yourself in a position to be disrespectful, hurtful, harmful to anyone, cause that type of like break in communication between you and the other person. You want to make sure that we're trying to maintain as much as possible a cohesive and pleasant relationship. So that's gonna take you making sure that you stay calm. Okay, and if you find that you aren't calm, step away for a second, take a breather before you get ready to hop back into it. We'll get more into the take a break part later, but you want to make sure that no matter what, you stay calm in a conversation. How you step into the conversation can impact how people receive you in general. So if you're already angry, your voice is already raised, if you're already at a point where you are kind of like physically showing that you're upset, it can be really difficult to have any type of productive conversation, y'all. So check yourself first. Make sure that you are staying calm, cool, collected right before you get ready to step into that situation, okay? All right, guys, this is more important than we realize, okay? Listen actively. Listen actively. Don't just sit and look at a person like, or with the stank face like, because they're gonna know you're not really hearing them. They're gonna know you're just waiting for your opportunity to say what you need to say and get what you need to get off of your chest. So instead of doing that, guys, make sure that you're allowing yourself to listen actively. So what does active listening look like? I'm so happy you asked. Let me tell you. Okay, active listening is things like, yeah, I hear you. I understand that. Giving feedback, not interrupting the other person, but showing that you're visibly attentive. Relaxing your shoulders, opening your chest with a more concerned and aware look on your face as opposed to angry or upset. Checking and making sure that your fists aren't balled or your arms aren't folded. Giving the person your full undivided attention, putting the phone away, not looking at a TV if it's around, not paying attention to what's going on around you guys, like really being able to tune in, because that form of respect, that form of visible respect, helps somebody to disarm themselves and help them feel a lot more heard and understood in the middle of it. You want to make sure that you're looking for another person's perspective as well. Asking questions like, okay, so this made you feel that way at this point, huh? Or so this is something that was adding to that. Oh, so that's where that came from. Do you see what I'm saying? Not in a way to be disrespectful. We're not trying to disregard anything that anyone is saying, but we're trying to make sure that we're having a conversation that allows for people to express themselves and feel heard. That's what active listening is all about. You want them to feel heard. And when we're talking about all those steps that it takes to get to a point of active listening, the body language, the facial expressions, the verbal cues and things like nonverbal cues, like a head nod and things like that, that helps people understand that you're engaged in the conversation, and it'll help you all be a lot more likely to get to a positive conclusion when you all have an exchange of dialogue in that way. So making sure that you're managing that conversation, you're listening actively, not just sitting here for the sake of sitting here, but really listening to what they have to say. And you might find that you gain a new outlook on the conversation and a new outlook on the conflict in the first place, and really just get to that understanding that we're talking about, okay? So listen actively. You got that? Write that down now. Write that down. Listen actively. Okay, so how many times have you heard this? You made me feel this way, and you did this, and if you would have never, right? You feel attacked. You feel like you have to have your guard up. You feel defensive now because someone else has attacked you personally. They have not put themselves in it. They made you seem like you're the problem. This is why this next tip is so important. Use I statements. Okay, use I statements. I feel like blank. I was blank. I was uncomfortable when blank. I get upset when blank. There is no you always make me, or you're always doing, or you are no one. We're not doing that. We're taking the responsibility of the conversation instead of throwing the whole thing or whatever is the problem onto the other person. We're sharing the responsibility of what's going on. We're opening the doors to allow the other person to see, this is what I feel. This is what's going on with me. This is how I came to this conclusion. And typically when we get to that point of like the I part, again, with that perspective shift, it helps people to see stuff the way that we see it. Maybe what they said, they didn't intend to mean it in that way, but because we said, well, I feel this way, or I feel uncomfortable, now they could understand like, okay, this is something that's making them feel uncomfortable. This is what it is that I'm doing. And it's not, even if my intent was something else, it still made them feel that way. We take the responsibility and we're sharing that responsibility with the other person. And so in that way, all these you statements and the pointing fingers and things like that, we take away all of that when we say I instead, right? The other person doesn't feel attacked. They don't feel like they're being dragged around or thrown under the bus or anything like that. This is a mutual conversation where mutual responsibility is being shared, and it's going to get to a mutual agreement, hopefully, if you take that stance on that situation. So use I statements. I did this, or I feel this way, or I feel uncomfortable, or I get upset, right? Take that whole, all of that, just take it on yourself, okay? Okay, guys, this one is a big one. Huge one. Really, really big. Focus on the problem and not the person. If you are personally attacking somebody, right, building up all this thing, you always do this, and you're the type of person, very similar to what we talked about last time with I statements. This is the second half of this. Pay attention to the problem at hand. If the dishes didn't get done, we're only focusing on the dishes. We're not talking about any other part of the house. We're not talking about what happened yesterday. We're not talking about any of those things. We're focusing on that one particular issue. keeping that one particular issue, the thing that's at the forefront, it keeps people from bringing up old things, reliving the past. It keeps us from being aggressive. And it helps us to get to a place of common ground. We're both looking at this problem together presently. I'm not talking about what happened last week. I'm not talking about a month ago, a year ago, none of that. I'm here in the present, and I'm talking about what's going on between the two of us right now. When you allow yourself to focus on the problem and not the person, you can also separate now the behaviors of a person from the person. This does not make up their entire character as a whole. This mistake or conflict or anything like that, this is not making up the person. This is not equal up to the whole person. And so they're not a bad person because this happened. They're not a terrible person because a particular thing happened. We're in this situation. There's a problem, and we're gonna address the problem. Not you. We're gonna address the problem. And so that way, again, people don't feel attacked. They don't feel bombarded. We're focusing on the overall issue as opposed to like trying to put the blame again on somebody else. And we're disarming people when we do that. We're making them feel more comfortable when we do that. And we're making it a lot easier for us to come to a better conclusion for both parties involved. Okay, guys, so the next thing is we want to look for a solution and not retaliation. Solution, not retaliation. If we're finding that we're really upset and things like that, we might need to step away. We're going to get to the take a break point in just a second, but you might need to step away, do what you need to do. But when you're in the midst of it, we're looking for a solution. I'm not trying to get back. I'm not trying to make you feel as bad as you made me feel or hurt your feelings like you hurt my feelings. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm looking for a solution to the problem. We had a conversation. We addressed the problem. We addressed what the issue is. Now the two of us together are going to partner on getting a solution, right? And so when we redirect that attention to there, we can be creative. We can be a lot more open-minded. We can come to a resolve that is beneficial for both parties, as opposed to us like focusing too much on what the issue is or focusing that attention on trying to play get back. Okay, you don't need to retaliate. That's not necessary. Focus the attention. Remember, again, redirect that attention onto what solutions can happen. Use your brain power for good, okay, and not evil. All right, we know you can get them back. We know you can retaliate. We know that'll get them good, but we don't want to do that. We want to take the high road. We want to be a better person and identify how this can. Please pay attention to how all of this can help us alleviate some stress. If you're looking at the solution instead of trying to come up with a plan to get back at someone or to retaliate, now my energy is more positive focused than negatively focused. My heart rate is a lot slower. My mind is a lot clearer because I'm not looking for anything negative. I'm looking for a positive solution to the circumstance, okay? Or to the situation, all right? Now, if you find yourself in a situation where the conversation is way too intense, right? If you're feeling yourself overwhelmed, we can't really do what we need to do. There's no communication that's taking place because we're both too heated. Take a break. Step away. Give yourself that time to recalibrate, figure out what you need to do, and then revisit the conversation. The worst thing you can do, again, is before you have gone, or you're trying to go through all these steps and it's just not working because we just keep butting heads, we're just not able to have positive conflict. Okay, boom, let's go on to the next thing. Let's try to reestablish for ourselves what we might need to do to show up better the next time we have this conversation. There's no need to push it further if there's no communication happening. If we keep butting heads, let's take a pause and step away. It can end up being a lot better in the long run. Give us the opportunity to collect our thoughts, figure out what we need to do, and come back and revisit stronger and better and more focused on the task at hand and the problem instead of trying to go back and forth with the other person. Super important. Okay, and lastly, if you are struggling really, really badly when it comes down to managing your conflict, whether it be at work, home, with your family life, with your marriage or anything like that, instead of you trying to take on and carry all that by yourself, it's best to seek out some support, whether it be from a therapist, a moderator, an equal party, a neutral third party, whatever it might be. Get someone going in here to help you assist with this situation. Because you don't have to go it alone, okay? There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for some extra support. And it's better you do that than live in a space that's with tension, or have to go to work with tension, or have a whole bunch of like angry thoughts going on around who the person is and the situation that happened, and feeling like you have all this unresolved anger and frustration within you. Let that go and get an extra piece of support in to help you manage and show up the way you want to as it relates to your conflict situations, managing your relationships, and then again, looking to a place of better understanding. That's the whole point. The whole point is us getting to a point where we can understand each other. Conflict is not bad. How we manage it, though, that's the problem. And if we get to a point where we feel like we can't manage it for real, ask for help. Ask for some extra support so you can get to what you need. Thank you again for visiting this week's stress-free series. I hope this was super helpful for you guys. Again, remember, conflict isn't bad. It's how we manage it that's the issue. It can impact all parts of our body. So make sure next time you tap into some conflict, you get into a situation where you feel like it's a little heated, use some of these tips and hopefully they help. And if they do help, let me know. You guys have an awesome day and talk to you soon. Bye.